Gold is running hot. Inflation is up. And Bitcoin's price is not running just as everybody would think. But I found out who has been suppressing the Bitcoin price. It took some digging, and the answer will shock you. And with all of this, does this mean that the Bitcoin bull run is over? I don't think so. There's a lot of things to uncover today. But first, let's get into this great interview that we saw with Samson Mow, a Bitcoin bull and OG, who says something very interesting in this interview here with Eric Sachs. Now let's tune in.
Rip to 1M. Do you know what kind of tsunami of capital would need to come in during what kind of duration of time? Because I feel like there's a lot of capital that could come into Bitcoin pretty quickly. Do you have any estimates around that?
Hard to say. I think we should have been here already. So
Yeah.
I would have thought that the ETFs opening the floodgates combined with strategy would have gotten us there already. And this is why I'm one of the believers that there is paper Bitcoin out there dampening the market. So we'll see. But, you know.
So you heard it here, that he believes that there's paper Bitcoin out there dampening the market. Now, with this, what else have we seen here recently? We've seen whales selling Bitcoin. The average holding for entities with 100 to 10K Bitcoin has dropped to 488. Now, this is the lowest since 2018. So the whales are doing something very interesting. They're selling off right before this bull run starts to take off, or at least allegedly. I mean, we're seeing the amount of ETF demand go insane. On July 9th, the ETF demand for Bitcoin was 22 times greater than the daily mine supply. There's 450 Bitcoin, and the demand was nearly 10,000 in a single day. And on top of it, what we do see is that if you look at the Bitcoin treasury companies, they are buying 3 times the amount of the daily issuance, and that is on a average day. So these Bitcoin treasury companies are popping up like crazy. I mean, if you look at the overall number here, we have 182 at the time of this live stream. So make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button, because I'm covering all of this. But who is selling all of this Bitcoin when it comes to the OGs and suppressing this Bitcoin price? Well, it is the OGs, which I think is very surprising to some people. A lot of people who have been holding on to Bitcoin since 10 cents, maybe even less than $1, or maybe even right at $1, are now seeing the opportunity of these Bitcoin treasury companies and the financialization of Bitcoin. I mean, we have Adam Back and others going into Bitcoin treasury companies because they understand that they can get all of the debt financing terms that would be extremely friendly for those that are trying to essentially form a business. So Adam Back is one of them. And you could see here who's sitting next to Adam Back. We got our friend Samson Mow in the clip that I showed you guys earlier. What else have we seen? We've seen Tether give an additional 5,800 Bitcoin to the treasury firm 21 ahead of its public listing. So Tether out there, why would they give a company that is holding Bitcoin on the balance sheet as a private company? Why would they give it to a publicly traded company? You got to ask yourself this, because the amount of financing terms that are available to publicly traded companies are just absolutely insane. I mean, if you look at the MSTR flywheel here, right? The amount of Bitcoin that we see come up from debt, and we see this reflexive flywheel. I mean, I'm sure all you guys know that I love to show this, but make sure you're hitting that subscribe button either way. That they're issuing this debt to buy more Bitcoin, and then they're continuing to issue more equity. The difference is Tether is unable to issue any equity in order to buy more Bitcoin. And so these publicly traded companies, in turn, can do something like that. So they have more advantages and more debt financing strategies that they can pull to in order to then, raise this debt or raise this equity or raise this debt, excuse me, to buy more and more Bitcoin. So these guys see the advantages, right? Samson Mao and others have been pointing out, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, these whales see that you can now get more money, more debt, more financing terms. There's more strategies available for these publicly traded companies. Of course, there's trade-offs, but we're seeing it all over. The amount of treasury companies coming on board. I mean, look, we have Rumble raising 1.17 billion to get a Tether owned AI firm to add to their Bitcoin treasury. And we start to see these companies start to pop up. I mean, if you look at the overall number of Bitcoin on companies' balance sheet publicly traded, we have 999,666. Wow, what a number. We got 999,666. That is an interesting little tidbit here. I didn't notice that before I went live with you guys here, but it's incredible the amount that we're seeing and seeing it pop up oh so quickly. And so the rapid adoption of these treasury companies is now they need to get the Bitcoin from somewhere. So what are the whales doing? The whales, they aren't going to the exchanges and buying this Bitcoin. I mean, if you guys have been around here for a minute, you guys know that I keep on showing this, that, hey, there's 155,000 Bitcoin left on OTC desks, right? So that's where the big players would get their Bitcoin. Or you could go directly to a whale who potentially has this amount, wants to sell it off, and it doesn't make sense to go to the means to go, hey, you know what? I'm going to go and sell, billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin to a Coinbase or a Kraken or a Gemini. More than likely, they're offloading these Bitcoin to some sort of treasury company or some company that wishes to implement the treasury strategy, because they're the only ones that can be able to get this. I mean, these exchanges don't have unlimited money. And so we've had a lot of people that have been very close to this, including Prince Philip, friend of the program, who's been on the podcast before and a member of Jan 3 with Samson Mao. He's come out and said the exact same thing. Now, on this, right, we see that Serbia's Prince Philip predicts the Bitcoin price to surge, but he warns that there would be market suppression right before this major rally. So, what is going on here? Well, we see gold just hit another all-time high, and its record-setting run might just not be over. Now, what else leads Bitcoin? The narrative around everything is, hey, gold leads Bitcoin and the M2 money supply leads Bitcoin. Well, what do we have afoot here? In just 13 days and 21 hours, we've got a 95.6% chance to cut interest rates, according to the CME Group's prediction here. That's a pretty high probability. Look, I'm a betting man. I'm not going to lie to you guys. And I would put a good amount of money saying that we are going to cut interest rates here just based on this. I mean, the prediction would have to do a complete 180. And then, what we see, right? We see the M2 money supply. It starts to grow. And then the Bitcoin price lags oh so little, but it lags just slightly. And so we're starting to see the Bitcoin price start to shoot back up a little bit, right? We're not back at all-time highs. We're still at about 112,000 at the time of this video, this live stream here. And make sure you guys are hitting that like button for me and help spread the word, help spread the good news that Bitcoin's price, even though institutions are buying and the price isn't skyrocketing in flight just yet, I am very optimistic, and I'm going to go over all the reasons why I am optimistic here in a minute. But what I think is that we see Bitcoin's price floating around this 112 mark, right? And everybody's thinking Bitcoin's dead, Bitcoin's dead, Bitcoin's dead. But the only people that are selling are the major whales. Well, if I told you never had to sell your Bitcoin and you could simply just borrow against it, Would you guys do it? I mean, I think so, especially if you can get some favorable terms like my friends over at Salt Lending offer. So you could go to saltlending.com/green candle. Do that today. They will give you favorable terms. There's the link down below as well. Make sure to include that dash. It's green dash candle. Go ahead and do all that. And then on top of it, you know, you guys can go through and start to see what we, see these loan terms, and you're getting an exclusive offer if you go there. So make sure you hit that website and you do it properly, right? I'll put it in the chat here. I see we got a bunch of people in the chat. We've got McLovin and others here talking about how Bitcoin is finite. And that is true, right? So eventually to have these buyers, we need sellers, right? So Bitcoin is finite. And even though we have 155,000 Bitcoin on exchanges, we got Bitcoin on OTC desk, excuse me. If we look at the Bitcoin on exchanges, the overall chart here, well, it looks like it keeps on going down at 2.2 million. Now, on the flip side of things, right? This could be customer held accounts. This is not necessarily looked at as the ETFs or anything either, but we're going to start to see this number decrease as people start to realize the true power of Bitcoin and go further there. And what we are seeing too, TFTC had a great interview, which I think is kind of interesting here, about a model with the quote unquote diminishing returns, right? In January 24, the spot BTFs changed everything, but the returns, they're still here, and liquidity is coming in hot. So a source of the liquidity that we're starting to see is the Fed wire. People think that it's going to be, at first it was millions of times larger than the transaction network of Bitcoin, but now we're starting to see it. It's just at 157 times. So Bitcoin is already starting to swallow up a lot of the transaction volume from the Fed, to say the very least. And, despite the lower high each cycle, the trend line has been maintaining a 96% accuracy on this. Look, I'm not one to think that all of these models are going to work, but it's interesting to see that this model predicts a target of 300 to 350K by the end of year or early next. Look, we've got 3 more months left in this year, folks, and we have a big giant, let's call it, beach ball being submerged underneath the water here. Because what do we have? We have the overall market, the Bitcoin market, looking at, let's call it, the gold market, everybody trying to flock away from what we're seeing. And then we have the potential of global M2 money supply increasing as well. So all of this is just recipe for the price to go up eventually. And if you look at this, Bitcoin price rallies a minimum after a minimum of 145% after gold peaks. We just hit the gold all-time high here recently, like the other day, maybe even today it hit it. And so Bitcoin hit 145% a year later, then 286% and 315% in 2012. I mean, these things just happen very quickly after gold hits that all-time high. And we're seeing gold rip, gold prices absolutely explode, and it continues to grow, and Bitcoin is just one to follow, right? So if you're following this here, if Bitcoin is indeed following gold's constellation patterns between April and August, we could expect a new all-time high in Q4. Look, I'm not necessarily a chart bro, but hey, you know what? I think it is very interesting when you start to see these things line out here, right? I think when you're looking at Bitcoin and the overall price, it's going to follow the gold price. And especially as people start to get Bitcoin off exchanges, the easiest way to do that is Trezor. You guys could go to treasure.io. I've got my Safe 5 right here. You could use promo code GreenCandle for 5% off, or you could go to the affiliate link down below. If you go to the affiliate link down below, it helps me out. But either way, the 8 years I've been in Bitcoin, 9 years maybe at this point. Wow, I'm getting old, folks. But the 9 years I've been in Bitcoin, this is the easiest solution. You go to treasure.io, you buy a Safe 5, use promo code GreenCandle, you're 5% off. Then you go to cryptosteel.com/greencandle. You get one of these cases. You don't need a hammer. You don't need anything else. You can shop, get one of these hardware backups. You get one of these, right? You could get a safe deal. You could do all the different kinds you want. Either way, the cheapest option you can get is $30 here. And if you use promo code GreenCandle, you'll get 10% off of all of that. You could get different colors. You could customize it. You could back up any password and do it. Don't keep it on paper, because if you do, well, that's a recipe for losing it. Now, you got to look, because we're seeing whales, sell off some Bitcoin and do it pretty quickly, right? So, if you look at the daily inflows of these ETFs, the amount of buying, it's just a recipe for Bitcoin to take off. And I think that's going to continue to, look at these inflows. Now, make sure you guys are smoking that like Cheech and Chong, and hitting that subscribe button for me. Telling a friend to tell a friend. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet for you guys. Check out my latest podcast I dropped with James Lavish. If you guys go to my channel, you could see Lavish's ugly mug right here next to mine. I dropped it a day ago. So go ahead and check that out. Hit the subscribe button. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And I'll catch you guys all at the next one.